disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use as a use permitted it by the copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. I am Afro. Please do me a favor when you enter the room to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Today's video is going to be about the man who owns New York. Now, this should be interesting because who owns New York? I want to know, right? So we're going to see. We're going to see who owns New York. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Here we go.
Is competitive. I don't know exactly what people are taught these days, but it is. You should get used to winning.
Stephen Schwarzman is the 37th richest person in the world, worth a whopping $26 billion.
The first rule is don't lose money.
He rubs shoulders with the world's most powerful leaders. And yet, he's not a household name. In fact, outside of finance, no one's even heard of him. So how does one of the most influential, well-connected people stay in the shadows? How did he amass such a staggering fortune and the power to get a meeting with any president anytime he wants? One word: Blackstone. The largest alternative investment empire in the world. One of the most powerful private equity firms, its reach spans far and wide, and Schwarzman sits comfortably on the throne. But it wasn't always like this. He had to grit his teeth through hardship. Schwarzman's road to world domination is paved with embarrassing failures, and he's still clawing his way there.
We lost all of our money. And this was beyond traumatic. I don't like failure. I'm not used to it. We all have it.
Well, I never heard of this man, but I will say, looking at this man right now, I can tell he's broken. He done turned red. He looks like a color of a crayon, okay? He's turning red, you know. He said he don't like to lose no money. So, yeah. Somebody owns New York, though. Owns New York? I've never heard of it. I never heard of it, but we'll see. All right, y'all, let's continue to the video.
Stephen Alan Schwarzman is born into a regular middle-class family. They personify the American dream. Through hard work and sheer force of will, they've built a home goods business from nothing. With time, it's become one of the most successful in the area. Entrepreneurship clearly runs in the blood. Stephen strikes out at the age of 14 and starts his own company, a lawn mowing service where his brothers mow and he drums up business. He also sells candy door to door, but he still spends most of his time in the family shop. For 10 cents an hour, he does odd jobs, everything from selling handkerchiefs to packing curtains. You see, Joseph, Stephen's father, inherited the store from his dad. When he was young, he helped his own dad run it, and now Joseph spends his life running it. But young Stephen hates the store. He spends years doing the same mind-numbing tasks. It feels beneath him. Still, Stephen recognizes the success of the family business and he senses an opportunity. If it works in Pennsylvania, why not Chicago, New York? But when he brings these expansion plans to his dad, he won't hear it. He tries explaining it, but young Stephen can't wrap his mind around it. And Schwarzman wants to build an empire, and he's ready to fight wars to get there.
Man, I understand that. having to work a job for a long time that you just cannot stand, been there, done it. And that's why I am the way that I am. I'll talk about that another day. But I understand how people just go crazy and, looking for other ways than working where they at when you're not even happy being it. So, yeah, you look like you're about to go insane, though, right? You know you're about to go insane. But anyway, okay, y'all, so let's get into the video.
Stephen doesn't understand how his father can be content with a mediocre life. He has wild ambitions, dreams of grandeur, and he will soon prove that deep inside he has what it takes to become a successful finance entrepreneur. In high school, he runs for president of the student council, that is.
You did something that's quite audacious. You applied to Harvard, Yale, and I think Princeton, and Harvard did not accept you. So you then got out some coins and called the director of admissions at Harvard and said you made a mistake.
In 1966, he ends up going to Yale University, one of the most prestigious universities in the world. There, he starts a ballet society. The guys and girls of Yale rarely interact, and his club is a huge success at bringing them together. Later, he even fights against a 268-year-old rule that stops women from spending the time at a male dorm. And to everyone's surprise, he wins. But to no one's surprise, student pregnancies rose dramatically that year. Needless to say, he becomes very popular at Yale, even getting invited into one of Yale's most secretive and exclusive societies, the Skull and Bones Club. In 1969, he graduates from Yale, does a brief stint in the army before finally landing at his dream university, Harvard Business School. All roads lead to Wall Street, and armed with his master's in 1972, Stephen's finally ready for it. Or at least he thinks. Little does he know he's about to be challenged with one of the hardest tests finance has to offer, an investment banker's trial by fire. For those of you following me, you know that I'm hugely inspired by Stephen Schwarzman. And after watching this video, I hope you'll understand why. But I also want to use this video to make an important announcement. We did a survey a couple of weeks ago, and I was shocked to learn that many of you are not rich yet. The problem with generating income is it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. So I could make a video about micro SaaS as I did in the past, but if you don't have the starting capital, you will not make money with that. And if you already have $500,000 waiting on the sidelines, maybe you want to start an angel syndicate, not a micro SaaS business. What if someone created an entire university curriculum with hundreds of pages of courses that show you how to earn your first hundreds of dollars per month? Then, once that works, earn thousands or even tens of thousands per month, and then eventually how to shoot for the moon. Millions. Well, after a short period in private community mode, we are launching Giga University. Courses on building faceless YouTube channels, copywriting with ChatGPT, tricking VCs to give you millions, micro PE, angel investing, raising a fund, and a bulletproof network of professors who are ready to answer your questions on Discord. I am only making this announcement on this channel, so all loyal silverbacks have a chance to get in at a reduced price before we start marketing this to the outside world. And here's my promise. If you don't manage to generate any income, money back guarantee. Check it out through the link in the description below. This took months to compile.
So in between the video, we're marketing. At first, I thought it was part of the video. I did. Okay. But we got to get it in where we can fit it in, right? I understand. let's get back. I can't even say let's get back to the video because right now it's some marketing thing going on. But so let's finish listening, as I would say. Here we go.
To build, to research, and I'll be happy to see you on the other side. Stephen's first job interview is with Donaldson, Lufkin and Jenrette, an investment bank. When they tell him the pay is $10,000 a year, he has the balls to ask for more. Why? Because he knows someone else from Yale that works there and earns $10,000. Stephen wants to be the highest paid from his class. And you know what? They give it to him. After Donaldson, he finally lands in the company he'll spend years at, Lehman Brothers. Yeah, that Lehman Brothers. As soon as he steps foot inside, he's put through a meat grinder. His training is brutal and his superiors demeaning. When he hands in a huge 68-page report on an airline company, he's immediately shouted at over the phone. Why? Because he made a typo on page 56. Then, when he sits at one of his first board meetings, filled with his fellow colleagues, a partner at Lehman by the name of Lou Glucksman turns to him and screams,
"Who the f*** are you?"
Instantly, everyone's eyes are on Stephen, and Stephen's eyes widen like a deer in the headlights. His heart pounds, and his breathing becomes wrecked. What the hell did I do? Schwarzman wonders.
And why aren't you sitting up?
Stephen's first years in Lehman make the army look like child's play. Everything he does is put under a microscope and scrutinized. Any mistake, no matter how small, is cause for a severe, degrading verbal lashing by the higher-ups. Pressure like that is enough to break most men, but for a select few like Schwarzman, it makes them tough as nails. Still, Stephen was relieved when a man called Pete Peterson, yes, I know how it sounds, becomes Lehman's new CEO. Pete asks him for help on a project, and when he asks for a meeting a week later, Stephen's blood probably pumps as he can only imagine what mistakes he's made, what verbal assault he's in for now. But Pete is strangely happy, even saying, "Any friend in a place like Lehman is gold." Now imagine being friends with the CEO. Still, not even the CEO will be able to stop the coming storm. For now though, Stephen enjoys clear skies. With Pete as a friend, Stephen's rapid rise in Lehman is unprecedented. A rise many finance chimps can only dream about. It's been 6 years since he started at Lehman and he now commands respect in the firm. Hell, he's even up for partner. But first he must prove himself. Out of nowhere, a multi-million-dollar deal falls on his lap. It begins with a phone call. Who's calling? The CEO of Tropicana, an orange juice company.
Tropicana Pure Premium Orange Juice.
Stephen had done some small-time work for them, but now buyers were circling, and they needed advice on which offer to take. A huge responsibility, the biggest deal he'd ever worked on, just fell on his lap and Stephen's drastically underprepared for it. So what does he do? He books the next flight to their headquarters. By the time he's arrived, he has an hour to prepare before the whole board arrives. And he's freaking out. He has to advise on a multi-million-dollar transaction with only the stuff he's found out on the plane. The weight of the moment is enough to crush him, and with a deep breath, he speaks. Not long after, Stephen's back at home, sitting in his chair, fire crackling, whiskey in his hand, jazz music playing, and him with a blank expression on his face, shocked, not quite able to believe it. He had done it, executed a $500 million merger, all on his own. Not bad for a guy who used to sell handkerchiefs for 10 cents an hour. Almost everyone calls to congratulate the merger hotshot. Almost everyone.
Hello?
Who the f*** do you think you are? You sold Tropicana? I was working on a deal to buy them. We're firing you. On Monday, you're history.
The vice chairman of Lehman is enraged. He'd been working on a deal to buy Tropicana for another client. And now that it was sold, he could kiss his deal goodbye. Monday comes like a death sentence. The vice chairman of Lehman storms into the office and he's out for blood. He calls for a meeting with all the other senior members of the firm. Declaring foul play, he demands the company fire Schwarzman. Luckily, Pete's also in the meeting and makes it very clear Stephen Schwarzman isn't going anywhere. The Tropicana deal seals it. Stephen makes partner at the young age of 31. It's everything he's ever wanted, but his celebrations are cut short. A coup is about to take place. Over the years, Stephen has grown closer and closer to Pete, the CEO, and under Pete's guidance, the firm has had record-breaking year after record-breaking year. Still, Lou Glucksman, remember him? Well, he hasn't lost any of his temper. In one infamous incident, he ripped a company phone from the wall and used it to break a mirror. Ah, Wall Street. Lou slowly starts to pressure Pete. First, he wants a promotion, and Pete makes him president. Then, he wants to be co-CEO, and again, Pete gives it to him. Then finally, Lou decides he wants the whole damn pie. He wants to be CEO, and he wants Pete gone. Lou had rallied the other partners behind Pete's back, and now the time had come. So Pete gives Lou the last thing he's got. After 10 years of service, Pete leaves Lehman and Lou is crowned the new CEO. And Pete
He looked evil. That man looked evil. But again, people who are on top are so devilish. Like I said, they would do anything to stab someone in the back. Right? They will get you out. They will get you out. And they're not gonna stop until they get you out. Just saying, just plain devilish. I'm telling you, money rules. I'm telling you. All right, y'all, back to the video.
tells Stephen that he's tired. A civil war would destroy the firm and he'd grown tired of running it anyway. It wasn't long before things took a turn for the worse. The revolutionaries, led by Lou, make a series of bad choices, and within months, Lehman is in serious financial danger. None of the partners dare challenge him, and so the ship heads towards an iceberg at full speed, while everyone on board pretend it's all clear ahead. Well, long story short, just as Lehman's about to fall into ruin, American Express swoops in and buys them out. A buyout facilitated by Stephen. Luckily, Lehman would never come that close to disastrous ruin ever again. Stephen has come to hate Lehman, now more than ever. He's 38 and finally free. Now he's a family man with 2 kids. Maybe it's time to settle down, but he's far too restless. Perhaps he should work for another company. Also no, he could start his own company. Now that just might work. Then, on the night of the announcement of the sale of Lehman Brothers, Stephen goes to see Lou. The building is practically empty, but he spots Lou sitting in the dark of his office. His band of revolutionaries has deserted him, along with the partners and everyone else. He's alone, and when he notices Stephen's presence, he calls him in. He talks about how he's ashamed of himself, how he's brought Lehman to its knees, and how he wants to end it all. The fact that he'd screamed at Stephen in that first meeting, the fact that he'd ousted Pete and kamikazed Lehman, it must have all washed away in that moment, as Stephen takes a seat beside him in the dark.
I had done a lot of work while I was at Lehman with the chairman of the firm, who was a fellow named Pete Peterson. And Pete and I enjoyed working together. And so he had left in a power struggle a year before we sold the firm in '84. And so I decided that after we sold the firm that I wanted to join Pete, and Pete decided he wanted to join me, and what we wanted to do is to work together again. It was It was sort of a logical thing to want to do with one's life, and it had a good feeling, which is sort of when you do things in life that have a good feeling, it tends to work out well.
Lehman has shown Schwarzman the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. But Stephen is ready to start his own business, the one that will shake the financial industry to its core. Now free from Lehman, Stephen buddies up with Pete once again and they decide to strike out and build a firm from the ground up. They sit at a restaurant every day and talk for hours on end about what kind of business they'll open.
Wonderful strategic plan. We came up with a good strategic plan to do advisory work to pay the rent, to go into the buyout business because it looked like a pretty easy way, frankly, to make money in the mid-'80s. And then the third piece of our strategic plan was to attract very gifted people.
Stephen wanted to call their company Peterson and Schwarzman, but Pete didn't like it. If the company flopped, their names would be front and center. After mulling over what to call their company for a while, the pair eventually decide on Blackstone. They sign the lease on an office, get a receptionist, print some business cards. Priorities. Feeling good about their progress and confident about the business, the duo put up $200,000 each. Now it was time for the grand opening of Blackstone Group. They buy a full-page ad in the New York Times, and to drum up business, they write letters to everyone they know. All the contacts they'd accumulated in their combined decades of working. They tell them that they just love to do some business. Stephen sleeps well that night, confident that the next day would bring a flood of work. But nothing happens. Not tomorrow, nor the day after. Days turn into weeks, and the silence is deafening. A gut-wrenching fear takes hold. And just when things look their darkest, the sun rises on Blackstone. The phone finally rings, and some work begins to trickle in. Small, insignificant work they might feel is beneath them, but it pays all the same. While advisory work keeps the lights on, Schwarzman senses an opportunity for something bigger, something completely different to what they are doing. It's so crazy, it just might work.
So you went into the business of raising a fund. You tried to raise a first fund. How hard was it to raise your first private equity fund?
I think if you like pain and suffering, it was really terrific. Now imagine this, it couldn't happen today. There are two individuals, neither of whom had ever made an investment, announced that they wanted to raise the third biggest private equity firm in history and massively larger than any other first-time fund. So only two demented people would actually think they'd get a good reception.
The ambitious Stephen and Pete now want to launch a colossal private equity fund. But wait, what even is private equity? In a nutshell, private equity is to companies what fixer-uppers are to houses. You take a huge stake, often a majority stake, in companies that are not performing that well, and you fix them up. You give them some fresh coat of paint and hopefully sell them for a profit a couple of years later. Along with MTV and denim shorts, private equity is all the rage in the 1980s. The fund is a way for others to get a piece of the action and for Blackstone to build a war chest big enough for the big boy moves. Before they can even start being fixer-uppers, there's one teeny tiny problem. How the hell are they going to convince people to invest?
We just started out. We made an announcement that that's what we were doing. And then we went out into the world of endless rejection. And I encourage you to do that sometimes, because if you ever had an ego, it's like, you know, the sandpaper. You have nothing left by the end. And you make every elementary mistake you can make, which is you start with your closest relationships first, where you barely even know what you're marketing. And you go to them and say, oh, please rescue me. And they say, well, what's the answer to these 15 questions? You don't even know the answers.
Eventually, though, they manage to sign some investors. MetLife puts down $50 million and New York Life puts down $25 million. On one condition: the total fund size has to be $500 million. If not, they pull out. Sales is one of the most brutal fields out there, cold rejection after cold rejection. But the duo do what they have to. They fly from town to town and meet with countless people and organizations. 6 months of sales hell, and they hadn't secured a penny for the fund. No matter who you are, that has to rattle you, shake your self-belief.
I realized that the asset that we basically had is, as a result of the time at Lehman, we knew so many different companies, so many different people, but they were all larger ones. So if we had a small pool of capital, my partner wanted to do 50 million and learn. I said, let's not waste our time learning.
In the end, it comes down to just how badly you want it. Close to their breaking point, they arrange a meeting with Prudential Life, the #1 financier in those days.
We were over at Newark on a Friday, having lunch with the chief investment officer, and he was having a tuna on white bread cut across. And I'm busy pitching this private equity fund, and you can share part of our advisory profits. And he keeps chewing it, his Adam's apples going up and down, and I keep doing my thing, finishes the first half of the sandwich, gets through the other half, halfway, and he looks over at me and he says, I think that's a good idea. Put me down for 100. And I can still remember that moment. Did he actually say he's going to give us $100 million, the #1 investor in the world? So if he gives us money, other people will follow him. I just didn't want him to choke on the rest of that sandwich.
And Schwarzman predicted right. He knew that all they needed was one big, credible investor. Then others would pile in to invest.
He invested, or he gave them $100 million. How rich is these people? Do we have anybody on this planet that's earned or that's worth trillions of dollars? I keep hearing millions, but is there anybody that has trillions of dollars? Can somebody help me out with that? But anyway, $100 million he gave. Wow. Woof. Okay. Get into the video. Man, if only I had it. Here we go, y'all.
And they did. Eventually, they got the money they wanted. Now, it's time to use it. So how did Schwarzman and Pete facilitate the rise of their sprawling shadow empire?
I only like to go forwards.
Every finance geek knows if you want to make money, first you need some. Nowhere is this truer than in private equity. With their billion-dollar PE fund, they had a war chest, and Blackstone intended to make a splash. Using detailed analysis, the fixer-upper scanned the landscape for opportunities. Now in the big boy leagues, Blackstone had a whole new variety of moves they could pull to turn a profit. Instead of just fixing up companies, they could take big industry players and consolidate their power. Like how in 1996, Blackstone partnered with Löwen Group, the second biggest funeral and cemetery company in America at the time, and started buying out the competition. First Rose Hills for $240 million, and then Löwen's biggest competitor, Prime Succession, for a whopping $295 million. They did it again with Allied Waste in 1997. First came the partnership between Allied and Blackstone, then the buyout of Browning Ferris, one of its main competitors. Through this strategy, Blackstone were able to shape industries and always make sure their horses came out on top. Meanwhile, those that invested in their PE fund happily watched from the sidelines, enjoying more than 20% average annualized returns. This sort of success didn't hurt when Blackstone raised other PE funds. Investors came in droves, and in 1997, Blackstone raised a mammoth-like $4 billion PE fund.
Shut up and take my money!
Arguably, however, Blackstone's greatest mark has been on real estate. Through their BREITs, or Blackstone Real Estate Income Trusts, Blackstone has become the largest commercial owners of real estate in the world, with numerous high-profile acquisitions like Hilton Hotels, Bellagio Resort, Burn Leisure. They have also gobbled up vast swaths of American homes, almost 300,000. As American house prices shot up in recent years, the now behemoth of a company has profited massively, and their BREIT has ballooned to hold $69 billion worth of property, making it one of the largest REITs ever.
So imagine buying $40 billion of real estate one day and selling 20 of it the same day. The most amount of real estate that was ever sold in history in a year was 10 billion. So we were doing 6 times what anybody did on one day.
Blackstone eclipsed all other private equity firms, becoming the $100 billion titan it is today, that every young, ambitious chimp wants to work at eventually. With its meteoric rise, it also catapulted its founders to stardom. While Pete would eventually retire, Schwarzman still mans the helm of Blackstone, a multinational empire. His influence spans wide, and political leaders such as Obama, Trump, and even Angela Merkel have sought his counsel. If anything, the Schwarzman story shows one thing: that success only comes from blood, sweat, and tears. And if you want it, you'll need the tenacity of a fighter, or of a boy sweeping his dad's home goods shop, dreaming of a life with more, much, much more.
Wow, that was interesting. Blackstone. That's a very large company. Inherited millions and millions of dollars. So at the end of this rainbow, it all led up to how they became this rich was real estate. Now, I would say real estate is where the money is. You can make a lot of money from, real estate. But, wow. And he's right. Determination, blood, sweat, if you're a quitter, you're not going to make it there. You have to be determined, and you have to go full throttle. You can't just stop because you failed at one thing. So I agree with that 100%. But when I read the title, I'm thinking that somebody like really own New York, but really what they're saying is they own so much real estate in New York called Blackstone, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because I really don't be understanding a lot of this real estate and funds and stuff like that, but I'll be learning some things. I'm human, I don't know it all. So, but anyway, that completes my video, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to hit the like button, the thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel, and look out for more of my reaction videos. So, and also leave a comment, because I like reading the comments. Okay, everybody have a great day, and everybody please be safe out there. Peace.